So the first question I have for you is how did you become interested in working in project management?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I stumbled on it by accident, but at the same time, I always knew it was something I wanted to do. I came in as an ATEC student wanting to do animation, like the actual animation process. And my first semester, I took all the classes like animation processes, computer science, all the classes you need to start off on the animation pathway. And after that first semester, I was like, oh no, this is really boring. And I don't think this is what I want to do. And then I switched to sound design because I also got my minor in music and I've been playing in orchestra like longer than I can remember. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I play music, sound design that can correlate together. And I took a semester of that my second semester freshman year, and I was like, oh no, this is boring as well. So after my freshman year, I kind of had like a little young adult crisis, and I was like, oh man, what am I gonna do? And that's when I took Kara's project management one class, and I remembered asking my advisor, I was like, what is this about? And my advisor was like, it's kind of like the blow off class of ATEC. Not everybody wants to take it, but you have to take it to understand stuff. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And it was that first day in Kara's class where she was explaining what she did. Something just fell on my desk. So sorry. But she was explaining what she did. And I was like, it was like a little light bulb went off above my head, and I was like, oh, this is what I've been wanting to do. Like I can still work in animation, but you track everything, you make sure everything's getting done, you assign tasks, and you see everything from start to finish. So that's what I really liked, and I've always considered myself in the middle between type A and type B. I'm not extremely type A. I still like to have the creative aspect of it, but I'm also not extremely creative, as seen as me not liking animation. So I was like, this is a perfect median where I can work with the creatives, but I can also keep a tight handle on stuff. And I also thought it was needed because everybody in ATEC was so creative, and I was always hearing about people, oh, I have this idea, I have this idea, I have this idea, but none of them were ever coming to fruition. And that's when I was like, I think it's because y'all are so busy doing the creative part and the creative aspect of it that the more mechanical end of things wasn't adding up. And so that's why I was like, this is a spot that needs to kind of be filled at ATEC. So that's how I kind of stumbled onto production management. It was Kara's class sitting in there, and then just realizing that there was a need for it within the program.
Thank you for sharing that. And we have to give a big shout out to Kara or Apollo.
Yes,
Everybody loves her. Multiple people have referenced her in these interviews that I've done so far. She's an amazing person.
she really
And
is.
it's sort of the same for me how, I took the class because it's required. And
Hmm.
then you end up loving it because just the way she teaches it and she talks about it, it's like, I can do
Yeah.
this as a career.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there were even people who like me and some of my other friends, we were like, yes, this is what we want to do. We want to do production. But there were the other kids who were in like the game design pathway or the animation pathway who took her class, and they were like, I still want to do animation, but she made this class like 10 times better than I thought it was going to be. So yes, big props to her.
Oh, yes. And how did your time as an ATEC student help you out with pursuing your goal of working in project management?
Yeah. I think looking back on it, a lot of the critique most people have about the ATEC program is that unless you're in animation or unless you're in game design, it's really like up in the air. And I do think that's true. But I think ATEC, if you're not in those two pathways, it's really what you make of it. Because the only reason I was able to do Anim Lab, the only reason I was able to do Game Lab or do these other little side quests of working on stuff was because I talked to professors, I talked to Kara, I talked to other people and branched out, and I was able to get onto these projects. So I hear that question a lot of like, oh, how did you get to that spot in ATEC when nobody really cares about production technically? Like they really only care about animation. And I think it's really, really making it what you want it to be. You got to go in there, and it's hard because I know myself, I'm introverted. It's a little bit easier over Zoom for me to be calm. If this was in person, I'd probably be freaking out a little bit more. But I think a lot of people in ATEC, a lot of them, we're all introverted. We like to just sit in our corner and draw or mind our own business, listen to music. But with this type of program, it's you got to get in there and talk to people and figure out, oh, okay, well, I'm not a game design major. I don't know anything about video games, but I do production. Can I be in game lab? That's that's basically how I got in. And they were like, yeah, we actually need these people. So you never know until you ask. And I think that's the biggest part of ATEC is kind of just talking around, figuring out what you want to do and finding an area to get into it. So
And I agree with you on that as well, because multiple people have told me this too. A tech is what you make out of it.
mhm,
And that's something that everybody needs to realize too, especially with your college experience. You have to put in the work, and you get the results that you want, but you have to, the best way to describe it is you get out what you put in. At the
right.
end of the day, you get out what you put in. So since the time that you graduated, what has your career journey been like?
Yeah, I think I lucked out. Definitely will say I lucked out. I think because I focused in production management, that's always been the area that most people don't want to do. Like even in meetings now at work, sometimes we'll pull up production schedules, in a character design launch. And our production manager's like, okay, well, you have to do this, this, and that. And all the artists are like, oh, we don't want to see an Excel spreadsheet. Like nobody wants to see this. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So I think, production's already that niche area where nobody really knows about or doesn't even know exists. So I think competition wise, it's a little bit easier for us. If you're an artist and you do like rigging or animation or anything like that, obviously it's going to be 10 times more competitive. But I think in terms of my career journey, I started working at Disney 2 or 3 weeks before I even graduated this year. So I graduated in spring 2021. And I think my start date was like April 24th and graduation was until like May. So I had already been working for the mouse for a couple of weeks before I even had my degree. And so that's already unheard of a lot for like any type of post college grad kid, like you're always searching after school. So in terms of how I got there, it was also granted from Kara. I had made a LinkedIn post because there was a panel about production management in the animation world, and I jumped because I was like, oh well, we never get anything. It's always like a panel about character design or a panel about animation. I was like, production management, this is crazy. We never get anything. So I had just, I don't know what they call it on LinkedIn, retweeted or like reposted it. And I was like, oh, this is super cool, a production management panel. And it just so happened that one of the speakers on the panel worked with Kara at DreamWorks. So I posted and Kara saw it on her feed and she had been like, oh, this is Connor. This is one of my production management students, blah, blah, blah. And I had met up with him on Zoom, I think like fall of last year. And it was really informal, just talking about, oh yeah, I'm still in school. I got another semester left, but I'm interested in production. And then he was like, yeah, keep in touch. Like most people in the industry, they're like, keep in touch, keep in touch. But that next year, I think it was the week after the big freeze that we had. I got an email from him and he was like, oh yeah, we're looking for a new production secretary on this new show. We're going to start interviewing late spring, but send me your resume. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll send it to him. I really don't know. This is Disney, like pretty high profile, but I'll send it to him anyway. And that was in February. Didn't really hear anything until like late March. And he was like, yeah, I'll throw you into the pile for interviews. And I had interviewed, I think I interviewed with like 3 rounds with different people. And I think interview tip, if you're going into the creative industry, it's a lot less rigorous than I think other interviews. Like if you go onto LinkedIn and you watch like interview tips, they're like, oh, make sure you have like your strengths and weaknesses. They didn't ask me any of that. They asked me what my favorite movie was. So it's a little bit calm. So if you have interview jitters, you should be in good shape for this industry because they're going to ask you what your favorite TV show or movie is. So just a little side note, but I had interviewed, and then about a week later, they were like, "Yeah, we here's the position. Like, if you want it." And they were like, "You're gonna have to start early," because they were trying to backfill the position and everything. But I was like, "That's fine, working remote." So I literally did not have a gap. I had made sure I had all of my capstone work ready to go. Everything was set on Blackboard just to submit and turn in. And I called it a day, and I'd started working. So I think my career journey really started before I had graduated. And that's what you hear a lot about, that advisors, different professors are like, work before you start graduating to find, interviews or land stuff. But I think it was just a co-mix of me being lucky and also me being in the field of management and production. Um, because we don't have portfolios. We didn't have to go through all of that. It's just your resume and then talking about what you do and what you contribute to in the world of production. So that was how I ended up where I am. I'm very, very candid about it. I think people think, "Oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you intern?" I really didn't. So that's why I think I always say I'm lucky. But I just think it always comes down to what department you want to go into, and then also what who you know. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it is who you know, because I'm like, I slaved through years of computer science. You should be looking at my GPA, like all of this, but yeah, it comes down to just who you know.
And thank you for sharing that. That's an incredible journey. And again, it just shows how much you have to network, honestly. I realized it too. I said to myself, yeah, I need to start networking. Like, there's
Yeah,
no tomorrow, honestly. And
yeah,
keep pushing myself to do that as well. And how you're finessing, you went straight into the field. You were,
yeah.
what's that hashtag? Hashtag UT done? That's it.
Yes,
Yeah, you
UT
were
done.
hashtag.
UT done. I was
Yeah.
I was definitely done, I think. And I think it also, I think another part of this, um, like the whole transition helped. I mean, like the pandemic, I'm going to avenge losing my last year to the pandemic till I'm like 50. I'm going to be talking to like grandkids and nieces. I'm like, "Oh, well, you had your college senior year. I didn't." Like, I'm going to avenge this to the day I die. But I do think the pandemic kind of helped because everything was forced to be online. All these panels that usually would be in person in like LA or New York, it was online. A lot of the fees were waived. My interviews for Disney were online. You didn't have to worry about flying out, going to the building, all of that. That just adds another level to it. So I think being virtual helped a lot. And then, virtual networking is a little bit easier than it is in person. But yeah.
Mhm. And also, just to lead into the last question I have for you, what advice would you share with college students just based on all the experiences you've had?
Hmm. I think, I think enjoy it, because I already feel like I'm old. But like I would say enjoy it. I know you're in the pandemic right now. Hopefully things will even out a little bit in a little bit. But I would say enjoy it, because I'm like, man, I feel like I just moved into Res Hall West like yesterday. So I would first and foremost enjoy it. I know you don't want to wake up and go to those classes or labs, but enjoy it. Um, Second, I think it's not going to last forever. Kind of ties into number one, it's not going to last forever. So I think in my mindset as a production person, I'm thinking ahead all the time. So I'm like, okay, I got 3 years left. I have 2 years left. What am I going to do? I need to start putting this in gear. What am I going to do? And then I think specifically within ATEC, the academic advisors are amazing. I've heard horror stories from students in other schools like JSON. They're like, "Oh, our academic advisors don't talk to us." Or the engineering school, they're like, "Oh, the academic advisors just give us, a schedule and tell us that's what we need to do." But the ATEC ones are amazing, every single one of them. I think I had two during the course of my 4 years there because they switched alphabets, but they've never given me any issues. You don't always have to go, when you have a problem with your schedule. I would go in there, halfway through the semester and just be like, I'm thinking about taking these classes next year. Or and if the more you know them, the more they're able to be like, oh yeah, like I think game lab was eventually, it was like only 3 credits for me originally, but I was like, oh, well, I'm the producer, and they bumped it up to 4 credits. So get in there, talk to your academic advisor. They're really nice. Like ATEC, I think we lucked out with our academic advisors. So get in there and talk to them, because they'll let you know about different classes that exist that you probably didn't know exist that could help you. And then I would say don't burn out on events. I know I just said you got to network, you got to do all that, but ATEC sponsored events, I think a lot of freshmen and a lot of people I just knew, they're like, I have to go to every single one. I have to go to every single, Friday art critique or whatever, or watering hole or things like that. Don't burn yourself out on that. I think things will come a little bit more naturally. Go to a couple, but don't be like, oh, I missed one, I have to go, I have to show my face. I would say it's never that deep, but take time, do your projects, do all of that. And then I think like kind of what I answered in question number one, you gotta just get in there and talk to professors. You gotta get in there and I don't mean like hounding them. Like I never, like, don't be the first one standing right outside their door, like after class is over or whatever. Like there's no need, just email them, be like, hey, can I have 30 minutes to meet with you over Zoom, or meet with you in your office or something during office hours, and just be like, I'm interested in this and that. They might not know, but they might have another professor that knows. Like it's just getting in there and making it what you want. Because like I said, I think that was the biggest. I even heard it at in-person graduation a couple of weeks ago. Some of the grads, they were like, oh, well, ATEC didn't do this, ATEC doesn't do that. Unless you're an animation person, ATEC doesn't care. And I don't think that's entirely true, because I think it is what you make of it. And I mean, look, the small fraction of us production people. I mean, I had a lot of the people like Mary Schmeg, she's off working at like Epic Games. Like, I mean, we're all succeeding. So I think it very much is make of it. It is what you make of it. So get in there. Don't be super annoying, but get in there and find out what you want to do. And I promise things will work out.
That is all solid what you said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly too. As far as you have to put in that work again, you mentioned it multiple times, but repetition for emphasis. Am I right?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, and so it's good that with all the experiences you've had, you're able to share this advice with the students. And I believe, considering what you're doing now, is it's going to help out people.
Yeah. That's all because I'm like, I don't have any talent in drawing. I really don't. So this is all I can offer is my production knowledge. So I'm happy to be able to do it.
Well, hey, production people are important, and I will say I enjoyed this interview a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're
Same.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.